embers of our campfire had burned down to a dull, pulsing orange, casting long, wavering shadows against the towering pines of the dark valley. We were miles deep into the mountains, far away from any highway, when the thick night air carried a sound that made every hair on my arm stand up. It was a faint, high-pitched whistle, dragging out the tune of an old, forgotten standard. At first, we thought it was just the wind playing tricks through the hollow, or an echo off the rocky ridge. But then, the whistling stopped, replaced by the slow, rhythmic crunch of heavy steps stepping over dry twigs just beyond the ring of our firelight. A voice cut through the dark, smooth, mocking, and entirely too close to the tents. Jeepers creepers, look at those big peepers. Mark grabbed his flashlight, clicked it on, and swept the beam across the brush. The light caught two pale, unblinking eyes reflecting back from the shadows. Eyes that sat far too wide apart in a face that didn't look quite human, stretched into a sickening wide grin. As the figure stepped forward into the dying embers, the last thing we heard before the light went out was a wet whisper right beside my ear. Gosh, I'll get up. How'd they get so bright? The beam of Mark's flashlight died with a sharp click, plunging us into absolute choking blackness. Run! Mark screamed, grabbing my hand so hard my wrist nearly snapped. We didn't look back. We just bolted. Blinded by the sudden dark, we tore through the dense underbrush. The terrifying, rhythmic crunch of footsteps pursued us relentlessly through the pines, keeping pace with an unnatural, mocking speed. Breaking out onto the familiar trailhead, the reassuring, boxy silhouette of our truck loomed out of the dark. Mark fumbled wildly with the keys, dropping them twice in the dirt before finally jamming the metal home. The engine roared to life with a deafening, beautiful growl, and Mark slammed his foot down on the gas. We rocketed backward, tires spinning and spraying the wet mud, before we threw it into drive and tore down the twisting dirt road. The towering pines blurred into a wall of shadow as we sped away from the nightmare in the valley. We reached the old logging fork in the road when we had to slow down to take the turn. Relief was just starting to crack the cold panic in my chest when the static hissed. Without anyone touching the dash, the truck's stereo snapped on by itself. A scratchy, vintage jazz recording of Jeepers Creepers crackled through the speakers, filling the cab with its jaunty, nightmarish melody. We froze, staring down at the glowing radio in absolute, paralyzed horror. Before either of us could draw a breath, a towering, distorted silhouette dropped heavily onto the hood. Two impossibly wide, unblinking eyes pressed flush against the outside of the windshield, the glass bowing inward under the pressure of a sickening ear-to-ear grin. A wet, low whisper breathed out from the dashboard speakers right beside our ears.
Found you.